Hello everyone and welcome to part 2 of this video series. In the last part we talked about solar and lunar eclipses. If you haven't watched the video yet, here is a link for you in the top right corner. In this video we are going to take a look at jet engines, specifically turbofan engines. This is the Airbus A330-300 freighter, and here we have the General Electric CF6 engines. As you may have noticed in the new Flight Sim 2024, we have covers all over the plane. And today we are going to investigate the engine covers specifically. But before we do that, as always, a little bit of a science lesson. So what you see here is a beautiful animation of a jet engine. We have 4 stages. In the first stage, air is ingested into the engine, then this air will be compressed. In the third stage, the combustion, the ignition happens, and in the last stage, the ignited air and hot gases are expulsed. And here is a simplified view of an engine. You can see we have these N1 and N2 indicators, which are important for this video. N1 is the rotational speed of the low pressure turbine and compressor spool, and N2 is the rotational speed of the high pressure turbine and compressor spool. So turbofan engines are started using the bleed air from the air starter. This air starter can be either the auxiliary powering unit, the APU, which is this thing right here at the back of the airplane, or if the APU is inoperative, an external source is used like an air starter unit, which is this thing. You might have noticed that you can't start the engines if the APU bleed is turned off. Now this compressed air drives the engine starter spinning the N2 shaft first to power the high pressure compressor. Once N2 reaches about 22 to 25% RPM, and depending on the engine it could be less than that, fuel is injected and the ignition begins. These expanding gases drive the turbines, causing N1, the big outer fan and low pressure compressor, to start spinning. N1 essentially gets pulled into motion by these gases. Once the engine stabilizes, the starter disengages as it is not designed to handle the full speed of the engine. Of course, the whole procedure is much more complex than that, but for the sake of this video we are gonna keep it simple. Alright, but what happens if the engine covers are left on? If this is the case, airflow to the engine is blocked. This prevents the compressors from functioning properly, causing the engine to fail starting. The lack of airflow risks overheating, starter overload, and dangerous pressure build-ups if exhaust gases cannot escape. Alright, enough science, let's get back to the sim. Now that we have familiarized ourselves with a little bit of knowledge about jet engines, let us start with the main purpose of the video. I'm going to try to start these 2 engines with the engine covers still attached. And you already know what we need for that. Exactly, APU bleed, which is already turned on. So let's turn the engine mode selector to ignition. Here we are. And now I'm gonna start engine number 1 by switching on the engine 1 master switch. And as you can see, this one right here wants to start spinning, but it is not spinning. Like we said before, this one N2 would start spinning until 21-22%. Then we could have ignition and then N1 starts spinning. But because we have engine covers on, this is not working. Now let's take a look inside of the engine. So here we are inside of the engine, and what you would expect normally is that this spool right here, this turbine, is gonna start spinning. But because we have engine covers on, this is not happening. Now if we go to the front of the engine, we can also see that these fan blades are not spinning either, which is to be expected. Now let's remove the engine covers, and as you can see, already starting and spinning. A little bit too fast, but at least this is done correctly. With engine covers on, no engine start. Removing the engine covers will make the engine start again. If we now take a look again inside the engine, you can see this turbine is spinning. And don't mind this flickering, this is the FrameGen mod that is doing this. But let's take a look at the fan blades in the front, and they are spinning too, like we saw before. Obviously, engine damage when the covers are on rising pressure, rising high temperatures. I guess this is not modeled, but at least we can enjoy a little bit of realism. So to conclude, the behavior of the engines while the covers are still on is somewhat close to reality, but I would assume that in real life the engines would either not start at all like in the sim, or they would start spinning and sucking in the engine covers, damaging the engines furthermore. If you're an engineer watching this and if you know more about the real life behavior, please write that down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and smash that subscribe button because there is still a lot more coming. Thank you very much for watching. As always, see you in the next one.